I'm going to share with you a story that goes back to almost 2009, 2010. It was one of my many journeys into Central America, and this one was into Nicaragua. And I've spent many nights and months in Nicaragua over the years. And this journey took me to a couple outside of Leon, Nicaragua, which is about an hour and a half outside the capital, Managua, to Mr. and Mrs. Chacon. And Mr. and Mrs. Chacon, they lived in a jungle community. And I found this video, and it so lays in how God started working on the Grand Transfer Project in my heart long before my grandson was ever born. I was raised by parents who were a half a century older than I was. So I was constantly around people that were older, aged, and I dealt with a lot of death early on from these folks that were now passing. And I always wanted to listen to them. And now it's brought me to this as a ministry, but Mr. and Mrs. Chacon back in 2009, 2010, I didn't even realize what was happening, and I found this video, and I've cut myself from then out of it, and I wanted to talk to you now, but I am gonna leave the last segment, I'm gonna leave myself in there from 2010 or so with some, you know, 360p technology. Well, and what I look like then. So I will leave that for you, but I hope you enjoy the journey. So Mr. and Mrs. Chacon, they live in a village. It's a jungle village. They get this now. They were 50 to 60 years of marriage at this point when I was out there with them. I do have a translator that goes with me, but here's the important part. They grew up in an impoverished area. They lived in a home that was made out of wood, tarp, tin, and get this, they raised 18 children under a Christian roof in that environment. And today the Lord has blessed them with, at this point, I think it was 92 or 94 grand, great grand, great great grandchildren. Almost 100 have come from this couple, and they were blessed to be able to see this. So if there's anybody who wants to give you advice on relationships, I think they qualify. So let me introduce you to Mr. and Mrs. Chacon. Is a treasure from God.
La relación de ustedes representa un tesoro para Dios.
And so I want to ask you a few questions.
Entonces le quiero hacer unas cuantas preguntas.
Sí. How did you meet?
¿Cómo se conocieron?
Conocimos, ella era de León.
Él era de León
Del
también,
Calvario.
pero del Calvario.
Y ella del Calvario.
Pero ¿cómo se conocieron?
Nos conocimos en una hacienda. Yo trabajaba en una hacienda y ella a vender con la mamá. Y los conocimos por primera vez.
I met her at a farm long time ago. I was working as a farmer, and that was a private farm, by the way. He says.
Oh.
And she and her mom used to sell food for the workers, for the farmers. Right. And she showed up one day, and that's how I met her. That's how I got to meet her.
Was it love at first sight?
Se fue amor a primera vista. Se enamoró de ella a primera vista.
Primera vez.
At first sight.
Really? That is good.
Yeah.
That's good. That is good. Okay, here's a question for you, Mrs. Chacon.
Para usted una pregunta, sí.
Like all men,
Como todos los hombres, usted sabe.
I'm sure there's a time it was difficult to be with Mr. Chacon.
Yo sé que como todos los hombres. Mire, espéreme que le traduzca para que pueda entender, por favor. Como todos los hombres, usted sabe, me imagino que hubo un momento en la relación que fue difícil lidiar con el señor Chacon, ¿verdad?
Yo sentí, como le digo yo, que yo así, cuando uno es joven, usted sabe que son de terrible, no solo era él, pero para mí no había nadie más que él.
Surely enough, he wasn't easy to deal with sometimes. But I tell you what, there were so many guys after chasing me, because they wanted my love. Right. But he was the chosen one. Like I didn't have eyes for anybody else but him.
Really, that is good. What is, if somebody came to you, a young girl,
Si una muchacha joven viene a usted
who's going to get married,
y le dice a esa muchacha que ella se va a casar,
what advice would you tell her? One thing about having a family.
una, ¿qué recomendación le daría usted? Una cosa que le pueda recomendar a esa muchacha. ¿Qué consejo le daría?
Yo lo he tenido y toda la vida he aconsejado a la juventud, ¿no? De mi persona, de lo que yo he vivido con él.
¿Qué recomendación le daría usted? ¿Qué consejo le daría? Un consejo.
Como una hora que voy a salir, mira, para que te cases, meditar esto.
Sí, yo de todo eso se lo pongo. Ya después comienzo y después termino con decirle que eso sí te puedes pasar por aquí, y al final vos vas a conocer si en verdad es buen marido que te está cediendo el Señor y que está en las manos de tanto vos como el marido. Todo eso hay que ver.
So Mrs. Chacon made it pretty simple, but it was a different time. Actually, they probably had different values than we have today. Get to know the person. Know who they are. Don't rush. And then seek him for clarification and confirmation. You know, the Chacons who are no longer with us, they've a number of years ago have passed into the golden roads and are spending eternity with the Lord. They did share with me, though, over 50 years, they've had some rough times economically, financially, relationally, health-wise, everything you couldn't go through possibly. They were going through in a country to where they didn't have anything that we have in the modern world today, but they made it because they didn't quit. Mr. Chacon, you'll see I'm going to let myself from 2010 do the next part, but Mr. Chacon gives a piece of advice to men in that, but he also gave me something on another trip, and it was this. You know, I asked him one secret to relationships, and he told me this: Ephesians 5:33 is everything. In the end, what happens is we're called to love our wives as Christ loved the church, but they're also then called to respect us. And so many times we get it backwards as men. We're like, well, she doesn't respect me, so I'm not going to love. Nah, you love first as Christ loved you. Then the respect will come. Mr. Chacon gave me that, and I could do a separate video on that alone, the lessons he taught me in there. But I just wanted to share that with you. But the rest of the time, I'll let Mr. Chacon and Mrs. Chacon speak for themselves. Enjoy the video. What is one thing when marriages have trouble, right? Because they do.
Mire, cuando los matrimonios están pasando por problemas, ¿qué es lo que usted...
Right. What What is something that you say, right, that got you through, that always got you through? What was at the core? God?
Mire, la pregunta es de que cuando se dan los problemas grandes en los matrimonios, ¿cómo ustedes resolvían los problemas? Es decir, ¿Dios les ha ayudado a resolver sus problemas con la comunicación?
Nos poníamos a cuenta con Dios y Dios nos respondía, pues, porque siempre y cuando reconocíamos el error. Y entonces, tanto él como yo, y entonces Dios, había esa coincidencia, pues, que había como ponernos de acuerdo, porque si queremos servir al Señor, tenemos que ponernos de acuerdo.
When we went through hard times, we wouldn't talk for 1 week or more, just like everyone else. But after that, deep down inside, we knew that we needed to talk to God, and we prayed on our knees. And after talking to God, we usually found an easy solution.
Right. God is the solution. And is the solution a forgiving heart?
Mire, ¿será que tener un corazón bondadoso es una solución para resolver problemas? That's right.
If you were to talk to a man, right?
Si usted fuera a recomendar a un hombre,
and he wanted to know how to keep my marriage strong, you know?
Si viene un hombre, un fulano, un caballero, le pregunta cómo mantener fuerte un matrimonio,
What would you tell him?
¿qué le diría él?
Man to man.
De hombre a hombre.
De hombre, legítimamente cuando se trata de dar un consejo a cierta persona que lo necesita.
When it comes to giving a piece of advice to somebody who needs it,
Entonces yo vengo y les recomienda, porque por mí, ¿verdad? Yo tengo tantos años de casada, he tenido bajones y trepones, pero siempre he estado con la constancia pidiéndole a Dios que me ayude a conservar el matrimonio para llegar a un final que tanto lo deseo.
First, I would tell him that I could be his mirror, that he could see himself in me, and we all go through different experiences, and then we all know we have different approaches. But my main recommendation is to have him talk to God, because that God is the solution in the end.
So, in your relationship,
Dentro de su relación,
God, Jesus, right, is the center of all.
Jesús ha sido el centro de toda su relación.
De que yo entré, ¿verdad? Cuando yo me casé con ella, yo estaba con ella, no era cristiana, me casé con ella yo en el cristianismo, porque luego tenemos 50 años de casada. Cuando yo me junté con ella éramos nada más así apegadas, pero luego reconocía que a Dios, ¿verdad? Y entramos a la meta de buscarle a Él y servirle a la
¿Hace cuánto se casaron?
por lo menos cuando nos casamos tenemos por lo menos como 56 años. Después de que yo me arrepentía del arrepentimiento fue a los 53, ¿verdad? Tuve 2 años.
Says that he, before they get married, they lived, together without getting married,
Right.
for 3 years. In the first 3 years of relationship, he realized that something was missing out. And it was after becoming a Christian that he realized the importance of being married and then be pleasant to God.
Right. How about raising children? In raising children,
Ahora, criando a sus hijos, vean.
is it patience, love? You have 18,
Ustedes tuvieron 18 hijos, ¿verdad? ¿Qué se necesita para criar los hijos? Paciencia, amor, ¿qué se necesita?
Realmente para criar los hijos se necesita amor, ¿verdad? Y después decisión de ser un padre responsable delante de Dios.
Number one, you need love and a genuine determination of being a responsible father, like God is with us.
Right. Do you see fathers today less responsible than when you were?
Mire, según su opinión, don Chacon, los papas de ahora son menos responsables que sus tiempos.
En este tiempo, hermano, yo creo que el 80% de los padres son irresponsables.
In my opinion, 80% of the fathers nowadays are not responsible.
That's good. Mrs. Chacon, a question.
Una pregunta para usted, señora Chacon.
What do you think today, with the divorce so high, that if God was at the center, could we eliminate a lot of those problems, with divorces?
Mire, usted sabe que el divorcio se está dando bastante ahora. La tasa de divorcio es grandísima, es grandísima. ¿Usted cree que si Dios ocupara el centro de los matrimonios, se podría evitar el divorcio? ¿Usted cree que Dios puede...?
Sí, yo sé que se puede.
Yes. Now, did you ever have a difficult moment where you two were like, I can't do it?
Mire, les pregunto, ¿será que ustedes habrán pasado un momento, de esos momentos duros que se decían ustedes, me voy a dejar de esto, de esta? ¿Nunca se quisieron dejar?
No, she's like, no. Never, huh?
Nunca.
Pues había así, pero siempre nos volvíamos a acuerdo porque algo que yo le notaba a él, entonces sí, como en el tiempo que él no era nada, usted sabe que el hombre hace cosas por fuera de camino, pero yo llamaba la atención a él y él me oía y no pasaba más.
There were times in which I wanted to give up on him, but after talking to him for a while, he came. We always, bottom line, we always found solutions through communication.
Right. And God at the center.
Y Dios estaba al centro, ¿verdad?
That is great. That is great. Well, you two are a blessing.
Ustedes dos son una bendición.
And the message is so clear
El mensaje aquí es bien claro.
that to have 18 children and
Han tenido
53 years of marriage.
53 años de casados y 18 hijos.
It is only through God, right, that you could
Solamente ha
make
sido
that.
posible a través de Dios que
Sí,
ustedes.
él ha sido el que me ha manejado.
Yeah, he has been our boss.
You feel, and I believe, that men quit. They give up, right?
Bueno, nosotros sabemos de que, bueno, yo creo que los hombres, muchos hombres se dan por vencidos fácilmente de sus responsabilidades.
Yeah.
En el momento ¿verdad? Cuando yo comencé a tener mis primeros hijos, ¿verdad? Como le digo, me costó mucho, pero le doy mil gracias a Dios, ¿verdad? Porque todos mis hijos pues no aprendieron bastante, pero saben defender, ¿verdad? Aunque sea humildemente. Pero en este tiempo, hermano, usted sabe que la vida en aquel entonces, cuando se ganaban 3.50 al día, trabajando, y de allí emanaba la comida, los hijos, todo tal,
Sí.
todo. Ahora hay una gran facilidad porque vienen tanta gente que ayudan en todo eso. ¿verdad?
Sí, claro, claro. Entonces, I feel blessed because as far as I remember, God never gave me the giving up spirit, you know. I never give up on my kids. And it was tougher to raise your kids, you know, money-wise. And you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. Does that make sense? And I see the result of my effort with all my kids because now they do what they can for me. So
Right.
they are paying back in a way, you know,
Right.
all the work that I did for them.
Mrs. Chacon,
La última preguntita, Chacon.
if you were to leave a message to this world, right,
Si usted, mire, si le dijeran que deje un mensaje al mundo
about life,
sobre la vida,
love,
sobre el amor,
relationship,
la relación,
whatever,
cualquier cosa,
what would you say?
¿cuál sería su mensaje para el mundo? Sobre en el amor, por ejemplo. Un mensaje chiquito, ¿qué diría la gente?
El mensaje es que mi vida pues no fue tan amargada que quizás como cuando yo comencé que no era nada, pero que cuando llegué a los pies de Cristo quizás yo ya estaba escogida en el vientre de mi madre y tanto yo como él, porque fue una cosa pues de que Dios oyó a ambos dos lo que necesitábamos. Porque cuando uno se llega a querer, Dios conoce los sentimientos de cada uno de nosotros. Entonces, así
My message would be to bring your problems to God. Bring your problems before God every time you have them, and don't let time ruin the solutions because the solutions are there. But it is only through God that you can find those solutions. So my recommendation is to bring your problems before God, and He'll do the rest.
So was there any surprise with Mrs. Chacon? Turn to God. Spend time with Him. And also, don't let the sun go down on your problems. And too many times in relationships, we do, and we carry it and allow it to manifest itself. And eventually we get into these big, long, drawn-out battles when we really didn't need to at all. But Mr. Chacon, all these years on this earth, he's going to leave one piece of advice for men. What do you think it is? As the senior man, right? As the hombre of hombres here, right?
Como el jefe de jefes, que es usted.
What would you leave if you left a message today?
Si usted fuera a dejar un mensaje.
se murió.
¿Ah?
Se murió
Vamos
y volvió a revivir.
Déjame
Porque el Señor lo mandó de vuelta, que no puede
vamos a sigamos.
¿Cuál sería su mensaje para el mundo? Un mensajito para el
Un
mundo.
mensaje para los varones, ¿no?
Ujú.
Para mí el mensaje más grande para un varón, ¿verdad? Que cuando quiere tener relaciones, ¿verdad? Sexuales, como se habla ahora, tiene que ser bajo del matrimonio, ¿verdad?
My greatest message is to avoid sex before marriage. You know, wait till you get married to explore, you know, your bodies and you'll find love.
Because that's a gift from God.
Sexo es un regalo de Dios.
Okay. Well, God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
Gracias por el
Para que se identifique pues cuando estamos con ella, Ella tenía 16 años, andaba de 16, andaba por 17 años.
2 años mayor.
Desde entonces son...
Says that they met when he was 18 and she was 16. They are together ever since.
Wow, wow, that was wonderful. Thank you.